Hello, storytellers. We have another ChatGPT battle for you today. So this is where I will write a story and ChatGPT will write a similar story along similar lines, and we see which one is the best. And to find out which is the best, you need to vote and tell me which one you think is the best. If you carry on and watch it all the way through, that is. First I'm going to do my story, then I'm going to do the ChatGPT story. So, this is a story about Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and it's a bedtime style story, or what I think is a bedtime story anyway. So, without any further ado, let's commence. Commence battle. The troop of boy and girl scouts gathered at the base of Mount Snowdon. They were in awe of the man before them. The scoutmaster was deep in conversation with Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. The prince was worried about the weather on this fine winter's day, but Scoutmaster Jane soothed his fears. Your Royal Highness, the BBC mountain forecast has fine conditions. Just look at the blue skies above. It's going to be a safe climb for the boys and girls under my charge. Prince Andrew looked nervously to Mount Snowdon, but agreed that it did look safe, and so he reluctantly allowed the troop to take on their expedition, though he reminded the scout leader to keep in radio contact and that he would be at the ground station listening in. The mountain was fiercely high, but the troop made solid progress up the Llanberis path. Their brown boots stomped merrily up the slope. The youngest and smallest member, Bertie, as always had the largest pack. He was only 12, but had a voice much stronger than his years, yodeling on the way up between the troop's hiking songs, which brought a merry atmosphere to all. The bright sunshine had really warmed the group. Some removed their fleeces as they neared the final advance to the summit. Then a cold breeze enveloped them as the skies darkened. Scoutmaster Jane looked back to see the majesty of a cumulonimbus cloud, the dark, almost black base, threatening to extinguish the sun. The group fell silent. Even Bertie's yodels faded into echoes as they turned to look at the showers approaching from the west. Jane called on everyone to deploy their cagoules and group up. They were exposed with no shelter in sight. The circle crouched down. One girl opened her brolly, which was quickly whipped away by the strengthening breeze. The snow soon followed, thick, heavy, a wall of white. The few that had chosen shorts for the climb had their legs thrashed red as a blizzard threw snow at them horizontally at gale force speeds. A boy started to cry. Jane tried to calm them all, but all seemed futile in the biting wind. She got on the walkie-talkie and contacted the ground station. Prince Andrew was enjoying a strong cup of tea, idly dunking Jaffa cakes when the call came in. He could hear the distraught words of the scoutmaster. The winds were taking many of her words, but he got the gist of it. He told her the helicopter would be deployed immediately, but upon calling the helicopter station he found that the pilots had been snowed in and could not make it. There was nobody who could fly in to save the troop. Then an idea came to him. He got in his jeep and made his way to the airfield. Fortunately, the snow had been light on his route. As he swung into the helicopter seat, he realised that he had no training on the H-145. Also, he hadn't flown a helicopter in over 10 years. He thought, to hell with it. Those kids need my help now. The snow built up on the mountain, almost burying the ring of the scout troop. Teeth chattered, but they sang marching songs which barely held their spirits. Then brightness came down, and the winds eased down. Deputy Leader Graham gave a fist pump. We're saved! Jane shook her head and pointed. There's more on its way. There's no way a helicopter will get through this. The icing ring would bring it down in seconds, if it so much as touches the torrents of cloud. Jane handed around Kendal mint cake as Graham waved his collapsible spade. Snow igloo time! Jane's reply was cut off by the thumping of rotor blades. A yellow Eurocopter rose majestically through the valley and nestled in a hover, which was a tricky manoeuvre with the turbulence coming off the ridgeline. Prince Andrew looked out of the window at them and gave them a friendly wink. He had no winch person on the crew, so had to put her down. Precariously, the skids did sink into the steep snow. "All aboard! The Snowdonia Express!" he ejaculated. The gang steamed aboard. Scoutmaster Jane sat in the front. A tear rolled down her cheek as she looked to Prince Andrew. "O Lion of the Falklands, you have saved us again." Prince Andrew replied, "Not yet, and we are over the weight limit for this helicopter. But Hades will not stop me. I'm getting you down that mountain." "But what about the storms?" "Don't worry, Scoutmaster. I've seen worse. I've trained with the best. I'll get you down. Have no fear." True to his word, he weaved the heavily laden helicopter between the storms, and except for the odd flurry of snow or hail and a few turbulent bumps, he brought the troop safely back to the airfield. There he stoked up the wood burner and treated them all to hot chocolates and tales of his days as a naval aviator. So that is my bedtime story. So what did I tell ChatGPT? I told it, write a bedtime story about Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. So I specified the Duke of York so it didn't get confused. So what did it say? It said, "Sure, here's a bedtime story about Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away, there was a young prince named Andrew. He lived in a grand castle with his family and had everything he could ever want. But Prince Andrew was not happy, as he longed to explore the world beyond the castle walls. One night, as he was sitting by his window, Prince Andrew saw a shooting star in the sky. He closed his eyes and made a wish to go on an adventure and explore the world. The next morning, he woke up to find that his wish had come true, as he had been transformed into a tiny but brave adventurer. Prince Andrew set out on his journey and soon found himself in a dense forest where he met a wise old owl. The owl told him of a beautiful castle where a magical princess lived, guarded by a fierce dragon. The prince knew he had to save the princess and set out on a mission to defeat the dragon. After many weeks of travelling, Prince Andrew finally reached the castle. He bravely fought the dragon, and after a long and difficult battle, he was able to defeat it. The magical princess was overjoyed to be rescued, and she thanked Prince Andrew for his bravery. She gifted him a magical feather that gave him the power to fly. With his new power, Prince Andrew set out on even more adventures. He travelled to faraway lands, met new people, and saw amazing sights. Along the way, he learned valuable lessons about courage, kindness, and the true meaning of happiness. Eventually, Prince Andrew realised that it was time for him to return to his castle. He missed his family and his home. With the help of his magical feather, he flew back to the castle where he was greeted with open arms. From that day on, Prince Andrew was different. He had seen the world and he had learned so much. He was kinder, braver, and more grateful than ever before. And though he knew that he would never forget his adventures, he was happy to be back at his castle safe and sound. And so every night before he went to sleep, Prince Andrew would look up at the stars and remember his adventures, grateful for all that he had learned and all that he had experienced. So there we have it. My story versus ChatGPT story. So which one was the best? Which one do you think was the finest story? Which one do you want to hear before you went to bed? And I know it's probably the second one you want to hear before you go to bed, but which one was the best, let's say, artistically merit in the context of a story, perhaps more than a bedtime story you're going to tell your kids maybe. But anyway, drop a likes and subscribes and all that, and I will have more ChatGPT stories. Even if nobody watches them, I'm still going to deposit these on the YouTubes to be digested by me in probably 10 or 20 years' time when I get extremely bored. Thank you for watching.